is recording to show pretty much completed visualization to help user diversify their portfolio based on how they perceive correlation and other financial variables. To start, I want to summarize the four visualization that I have here. The top, which is represented by a Sharpe ratio, is the visualization to show return relative to the risk of the portfolio. In other words, if there is a value of 0.1, then it means that for every 0.1% of return, you can expect 1% of risk or 1% of standard deviation. The bottom left is an absolute return. Bottom left is an absolute return and risk visualization. So if I begin by allocating a little bit of asset A, which is about 0.8%, going back here, the absolute return and risk has changed, and the whole point of this visualization is to see if user does get affected by seeing absolute return risk. So right here, return is relatively small because of the small allocation for asset A, and the risk is not that high, it's about 1%. Yeah, but the more they add, say add more again, this visualization will show that the previous allocation of return and risk is in the back at light color, and always the present return and risks, the darker color of red and blue, shown with a narrower bar. Yes. And if we go up, revisiting Sharpe ratio, the Sharpe ratio has changed. Currently showing 0.25, that's about 0.25% return, and you get, or you expect, relatively 1% of risk associated with that. Now the third visualization is in the middle here. This is the efficient frontier. How this is being shown is that the blue line is the efficient frontier of 100% of a portfolio being allocated in A, B, or C, or a combination of A, B, or C. And if the user understands what efficient frontier will bring about, is showing if a user have the right mix within the efficient frontier. For example, they want a 2% return. The best they can do is, well, about 6% risk. So the efficient frontier here is for user to strive to get as close as possible to it, because any portfolio on the efficient frontier is an efficient portfolio. In other words, the risk is minimized to the lowest relative to the return that it's associated with. So as I adjust, I'm getting closer to the efficient frontier, which is what the user should do. All of this is based on Markowitz's modern portfolio theory, of course. Now finally, go to asset correlation. Here, based on the data set for asset A, B, and C, the correlation is shown. If user want to see roughly what the correlation is, they can slide over to see AB is about 50.5 correlation. In other words, A and B rate of return would be expected to correlate 50% of the time, and AC is the lowest in correlation. It's actually very close to 0, but a little bit higher. It's about 0.1, a rough estimate on here. This visualization is meant to help user understand that less correlated assets should bring about higher diversification, because their assets do not move very close together. In fact, any correlation that is lower than 1 is ideal for diversification. any assets that are 1 is not diversifying at all. And if luckily, but since there's none in this data set, if there are any assets combination that are lower than 0, that are negatively correlated, is the best, assuming everything else is the same, is the best asset combination to have in your portfolio. That will, of course, diversify your portfolio and minimize risk. And that's the intent of this visualization, to help user realize, oh, AC is actually the lowest correlation. Perhaps if I have that in my portfolio, it will reduce my relative risk compared to my return. And as you can see, back to the Sharpe ratio, it has risen because I have selected some different asset mix. And to test, 2 buttons that I have currently is set and delete. Set and delete is mainly function dealing with the Sharpe ratio. So if I press set down here, this Sharpe ratio is now a reference point for the user to look back to see whether their risk relative return has improved or been lower after resetting some of my weights now. So let's reset some of my weights, reduce some A, let's say I increase B, and surprisingly my Sharpe ratio has gone up. So this is really an exploratory tool for Sharpe ratio to have user understand, okay, if I can play around the mix, what's the best risk relative to return relative to risk can I get. So this is almost done. Last is at that point. So I have 2 points set. The user can go, okay, maybe I want to delete one of the point because I feel that I made a mistake, I didn't like the weight. That's also possible. I delete it, back to original point. That's my reference point again. Readjust some weights. And as you see, all of the visualization here has changed. Going back, haven't really done too much for my Sharpe ratio, and yes, I'm getting very close to the efficient frontier, which is a good thing. And if I am satisfied with about 2.9%, then I guess the user can stop. Yes. So here are the 4 visualization panels that I proposed and built. Please send me an email or comment, give me feedback. I am currently writing the experimental part for this visualization. Feel free to also comment on that or give me more information if you find any. Thank you. Bye.